There is a language spoken in every room you enter, in every conversation you have, in every glance exchanged across a crowded space. It is a language more ancient than words, more honest than any declaration, more revealing than any confession. And most people never learn to speak it. They move through life deaf to the signals, blind to the patterns, unaware of the currents that shape every human interaction. But you are different. You are here because something within you recognizes a fundamental truth, that the person who understands people holds a key that unlocks doors others cannot even see. Imagine for a moment what your life would look like if you could walk into any situation with clarity, if you could sense the unspoken tensions in a business meeting before they erupted into conflict, if you could recognize genuine interest from polite dismissal in the first 30 seconds of a conversation, if you could perceive the hidden motivations driving someone's words and adjust your approach accordingly. This is not fantasy. This is not some mystical gift reserved for the chosen few. This is a skill, cultivable and practical, waiting for those willing to open their eyes and truly see. The masters of influence, the great negotiators, the leaders who inspire unwavering loyalty, they all share one quality that sets them apart. They understand people, not superficially, not through manipulation or trickery, but through genuine perception, through trained observation, through the disciplined practice of seeing what is actually there rather than what they wish to see. And today, you begin that journey. You begin the transformation from someone who merely hears words to someone who reads the full story written in every human encounter. This is not about becoming cold or calculating. It is about becoming clear. It is about developing the awareness that allows you to navigate the complex social world with the same confidence a skilled sailor navigates treacherous waters. You will learn to read the signs, to understand the patterns, to perceive the invisible forces that govern human behavior. And in doing so, you will gain something priceless, the ability to create outcomes rather than simply react to circumstances. The question is not whether you can develop this skill. The question is whether you will commit to seeing the world as it truly is, stripped of your assumptions and projections, revealed in its raw and honest form. Are you ready to open your eyes? Every conversation you have ever had contained two distinct exchanges. The first was the words spoken, the surface content, the explicit message delivered through language. But beneath that surface ran a deeper current, a stream of information flowing through tone, through pauses, through the subtle shifts in posture and expression that accompanied every sentence. Most people focus exclusively on the first exchange while remaining completely oblivious to the second. And yet it is the second exchange that carries the truth. Think about the last time someone told you they were fine when they clearly were not. You knew it instantly, did you not? Something in their voice betrayed the words. Something in their eyes contradicted their smile. You felt the disconnect even if you could not articulate exactly what you were sensing. This is because human beings are broadcasting information constantly through channels that bypass conscious control. We leak our true feelings, our genuine intentions, our hidden concerns through 1,000 tiny signals that our conscious mind cannot fully suppress. The face may lie, but the body tells the truth. The words may deceive, but the tone reveals. Someone may claim enthusiasm while their shoulders slump in resignation. They may profess agreement while their jaw tightens in silent resistance. They may offer compliments while their eyes dart away, unable to hold your gaze. These contradictions are everywhere once you learn to look for them. They are the cracks in the facade, the places where authentic feeling seeps through despite our best efforts at control. But reading people is not simply about detecting lies or catching inconsistencies. It is about understanding the full spectrum of human communication. It is about recognizing that every person you meet is simultaneously showing you exactly who they are while trying to show you who they wish to be. The gap between these two reveals everything. In that gap lies their insecurities, their aspirations, their fears, their needs. And when you can perceive that gap clearly, you gain the ability to connect with people at a level that feels almost miraculous to them, because it is so rare to be truly seen. Consider the skilled physician who can diagnose an illness, not just from test results, but from observing how a patient walks into the room, how they describe their symptoms, what they emphasize and what they avoid mentioning. The doctor has trained their perception to notice patterns that others miss. They have learned that health and illness manifest in subtle ways long before they become obvious. The same principle applies to human behavior. Every person carries patterns that reveal their character, their values, their typical responses to stress or opportunity. These patterns are not hidden. They are simply unnoticed by those who have not trained themselves to see. You possess this capability already. Your brain is constantly processing far more information than reaches your conscious awareness. When you meet someone and immediately feel that something is off, that is not magic. That is your unconscious mind detecting incongruities in their behavior, inconsistencies between different channels of communication. Your task is not to develop some new ability, but to sharpen and bring into consciousness the perceptive capacity you already possess. Let me tell you about a man named Richard. He was not born with any special advantages. No prestigious education in psychology, no natural gift for reading people. He started as a salesman in a competitive industry where most people burned out within 2 years. But Richard noticed something his colleagues missed. He noticed that successful sales had almost nothing to do with the quality of his pitch and everything to do with his ability to understand what the customer actually needed versus what they said they needed. So Richard began to study people the way a naturalist studies wildlife. He observed. When he met with a potential client, he would arrive early and watch how they interacted with their staff. Were they dismissive or respectful? Did they make eye contact or avoid it? He noticed what made them lean forward with interest and what made them pull back. He paid attention to the words they used repeatedly, recognizing that these words revealed their core values and concerns. Someone who constantly talked about security was motivated by different forces than someone who kept mentioning innovation. But here is where Richard went beyond simple observation. He reflected on his interactions systematically. After every meeting, he would spend 10 minutes writing down what he had noticed. Not just what was said, but how it was said. What topics generated energy and which ones fell flat. What objections were stated versus what concerns remained unspoken. Over time, he built a mental library of patterns. He began to recognize that certain behavioral signatures predicted certain outcomes with remarkable consistency. Within 3 years, Richard was the top performer in his company. Within 5, he was running his own firm. People thought he possessed some supernatural ability to close deals, to win people over, to navigate complex negotiations with ease. But there was nothing supernatural about it. He had simply learned to read the room, to perceive what others overlooked, to understand the human being in front of him, rather than seeing a generic customer. The fascinating thing is that Richard's success created a positive cycle. As he understood people better, they felt understood by him. And when people feel genuinely understood, they open up. They trust more readily. They drop their defenses. So Richard's skill at reading people actually made people easier to read, creating a deepening spiral of connection and influence. Now consider another story, this one about a woman named Sarah who worked in a large corporation. She was intelligent and hardworking, but kept getting passed over for promotions. She could not understand why. Her performance reviews were solid. She met all her targets, yet others seemed to advance while she remained stuck. One day, a mentor pulled her aside and told her something that changed everything. He said, "You are working hard, but you are not paying attention to the game being played around you. You think success is about doing good work. But in this organization, success is about understanding the unspoken rules, reading the political currents, recognizing what people actually value versus what they claim to value." Sarah felt offended at first. She did not want to become political. She did not want to compromise her integrity by playing games. But her mentor clarified, understanding people is not manipulation. It is awareness. Right now, you are navigating this company with your eyes closed, bumping into invisible obstacles, wondering why you keep getting bruised. I am suggesting you open your eyes and actually see the landscape you are operating in. So Sarah began to observe differently. She noticed that her boss, who claimed to value innovation, actually rewarded predictability and risk avoidance. She recognized that the executives who advanced were not necessarily the most competent, but the most skilled at building alliances and managing perceptions. She saw that certain people in the organization wielded influence far beyond their formal titles because they understood the network of relationships and knew how to navigate it. Armed with this awareness, Sarah adjusted her approach. She did not abandon her values or integrity. She simply became strategic about how she communicated them. She learned to frame her ideas in language that resonated with her boss's actual priorities rather than stated ones. She built relationships with key influencers not through manipulation, but through genuine interest in understanding their perspectives and finding ways to create mutual value. Within 18 months, she received the promotion she had been seeking. But more importantly, she gained something far more valuable, the ability to see the invisible structures that shape organizational life. Both Richard and Sarah discovered the same fundamental principle, that success in any field involving human interaction depends less on technical skill and more on perceptive awareness. The world rewards those who understand people because such understanding is rare. Most individuals are so trapped in their own perspective, so consumed by their own concerns, that they never truly see the person in front of them. They project rather than perceive. They assume rather than observe. And in doing so, they miss countless opportunities for connection, influence, and advancement. Let us go deeper now into the mechanics of perception. How exactly do you read someone? What are you looking for? The answer begins with understanding that human behavior operates on multiple levels simultaneously, and mastery comes from learning to track all these levels at once. Start with the physical. The body does not lie because the body is largely governed by systems beyond conscious control. When someone feels threatened, their body prepares for fight or flight whether they want it to or not. Blood drains from their face. Their breathing becomes shallow. Their muscles tense. These are involuntary responses shaped by millions of years of evolution. You cannot fake relaxation when you are genuinely anxious, because the autonomic nervous system does not take orders from your conscious will. So observe the body. Notice the baseline first. How does this person normally hold themselves? What is their typical energy level, their usual posture, their standard facial expression? This baseline gives you a reference point. Then watch for deviations. When does their posture shift? What topics cause their breathing to change? When do they become more animated or more withdrawn? These shifts are breadcrumbs leading you to what matters to them, to what threatens them, to what excites them. Pay particular attention to incongruities between different parts of the body. Someone might smile with their mouth while their eyes remain cold. This is a social smile performed out of obligation rather than genuine pleasure. The mouth is easier to control consciously, but the eyes, particularly the small muscles around them, are harder to manipulate. A real smile engages the whole face. A fake smile remains isolated to the lower half. Once you train yourself to spot this difference, you will see it everywhere, and you will never again be fooled by mere politeness masquerading as warmth. Hands tell stories. Watch what people do with their hands when they talk. Open gestures suggest openness and confidence. Closed gestures, hands clasped or arms crossed, often indicate defensiveness or discomfort. Hands touching the face, particularly the mouth or nose, can signal uncertainty or discomfort with what is being said. These are not absolute rules. Context matters tremendously. But they are patterns worth noting, pieces of a larger puzzle. Now move to the vocal. The human voice carries immense amounts of information beyond the literal meaning of words. Pitch, pace, volume, rhythm, all of these elements shift in response to internal states. Anxiety typically raises pitch and accelerates pace. Confidence often lowers pitch and slows rhythm. Anger adds edge and force. Sadness drains energy and flattens intonation. You hear these shifts instinctively, but conscious attention makes you far more accurate in interpreting them. Listen for what is emphasized and what is glossed over. People reveal their priorities through emphasis. They spend time on what matters to them and rush through what does not. They provide elaborate detail on topics they are comfortable with and remain vague on subjects that threaten them. The structure of someone's narrative, what they choose to highlight and what they minimize, often tells you more about their internal world than any single fact they share. Silence carries meaning too. Where does someone pause? What questions do they not answer directly? What topics do they deflect from? These absences are as informative as the presences. Like a sculptor who reveals form by removing stone, you can perceive the shape of someone's true thoughts and feelings by noticing what they carefully avoid. But here is where we must make a critical distinction. Reading people is not about jumping to conclusions based on isolated signals. A single crossed arm does not mean someone is hostile. A single pause does not indicate deception. Amateur observers make the mistake of treating individual signals as definitive proof of internal states. This leads to wildly inaccurate judgments. The skilled observer looks for clusters of signals that reinforce each other, creating a coherent picture. They look for patterns that repeat across different contexts, revealing stable characteristics rather than momentary fluctuations. Moreover, skilled observation requires you to separate what you see from what you assume. This is perhaps the hardest discipline to master. Your brain is a pattern, matching machine designed to make rapid judgments based on minimal information. This was useful when split-second decisions meant survival. But in complex social situations, premature judgment blinds you to what is actually happening. You see what you expect to see rather than what is there. So cultivate the practice of describing before interpreting. When you notice someone's jaw tighten, do not immediately conclude they are angry. Simply note jaw tightened. When someone breaks eye contact, do not assume they are lying. Simply observe broke eye contact. Collect these observations without rushing to meaning. Let the pattern reveal itself to you rather than imposing your interpretation onto scattered data. This requires patience and humility. It requires accepting that you might be wrong, that your first impression might be incomplete or inaccurate. The paradox is that this willingness to not know immediately actually leads to deeper and more accurate understanding over time. You train yourself to see clearly by resisting the temptation to see quickly. Empathy enters here not as sentiment, but as a practical tool. To understand someone, you must be able to imagine the world from their perspective, not to agree with them, not to condone their behavior, but to comprehend the internal logic that makes their actions sensible from their viewpoint. Every person acts in ways that make sense to them given their beliefs, their fears, their desires, their history. Behavior that seems irrational or incomprehensible usually reflects your incomplete understanding of their framework, not their irrationality. So ask yourself, if I believed what this person believes, if I feared what they fear, if I wanted what they want, would their behavior make sense? This question transforms confusion into insight. It allows you to decode behavior that would otherwise seem random or contradictory. The business partner who seems irrationally risk-averse may have suffered devastating losses in the past. The employee who resists your helpful suggestions may have learned in previous jobs that taking initiative leads to punishment. Their behavior is not irrational. It is responsive to a context you do not fully see. This empathic understanding is not weakness. It is strategic intelligence. The military commander who understands how the enemy thinks has an enormous advantage over the one who dismisses their opponent as simply evil or stupid. The negotiator who grasps what the other party truly needs can craft solutions that serve both sides. The leader who comprehends what motivates their team can inspire loyalty that transcends mere compensation. But empathy without boundaries becomes exploitation of yourself. You must be able to understand someone's perspective while maintaining clarity about your own interests and values. This is the balance: to see through another's eyes without losing sight through your own, to connect without dissolving, to understand without necessarily agreeing. Reading people also means recognizing patterns that transcend individual interactions. Certain personality types, certain psychological tendencies appear again and again across different people in different contexts. The person who constantly seeks validation through others' approval. The individual who reflexively controls situations out of deep anxiety. The personality that creates drama because chaos feels more familiar than peace. These patterns are not judgments. They are simply maps of how certain types of people navigate the world. When you can recognize these patterns early, you save yourself tremendous time and emotional energy. You stop being surprised when the validation seeker becomes clingy and demanding. You expect the controller to resist collaboration. You anticipate that the drama creator will manufacture crisis even when things are going well. This foresight allows you to make informed decisions about how deeply to engage, what to expect, and how to protect yourself from predictable dysfunction. Yet here is the profound realization that separates wisdom from mere technique. The purpose of reading people is not to control them. It is to create clarity. When you understand someone accurately, you stop wasting energy on strategies that cannot work. You stop offering logic to someone motivated purely by emotion. You stop expecting consistency from someone who has never demonstrated it. You stop projecting your values onto someone who operates from entirely different premises. This clarity is liberation. It frees you from the exhausting cycle of disappointment that comes from expecting people to be other than they are. It allows you to engage with reality rather than your fantasy of what reality should be. And paradoxically, this acceptance of people as they actually are often creates more positive change than any amount of pressure or expectation ever could. When someone feels that you see them clearly, without judgment or the need to fix them, they relax. They drop their defenses. They become more open to growth and change, because they no longer need to defend their current identity against your implicit criticism. Your clear-eyed acceptance creates safety, and in that safety, transformation becomes possible. So the art of reading people circles back to a deeper wisdom about human nature itself. We are all simultaneously simpler and more complex than we appear. Simpler in that our core motivations, our basic needs, our fundamental fears are remarkably consistent across all humans. More complex in that the specific ways these universal elements combine and express in each individual create infinite variation. The person who masters this art learns to see both levels at once. They recognize the common humanity connecting all people while appreciating the unique expression of that humanity in each individual they encounter. This dual vision, universal and particular, general and specific, is what allows true understanding to emerge. Now let us turn to application. How do you take these principles and weave them into the fabric of your daily life? Understanding without practice remains theoretical. Mastery requires repetition, reflection, and refinement. Begin each day with the intention to observe one person more carefully than usual. Not to judge them, not to manipulate them, simply to see them clearly. Choose someone you interact with regularly but have never truly studied. A colleague, a family member, the barista who makes your coffee. Watch them as if you were a researcher encountering a new species. What do you notice about their patterns, their energy, their typical responses to different situations? This practice serves multiple purposes. First, it sharpens your observational skills. You learn to notice details you previously overlooked. Second, it pulls you out of your own head and into genuine presence with another person. Most of us spend our interactions partially present at best, distracted by our own thoughts, planning what we will say next, judging what we are hearing. Focused observation demands full presence. And third, this practice almost always results in surprising discoveries. People you thought you knew well reveal unexpected depths when you actually pay attention. After significant interactions, particularly challenging or confusing ones, spend time in structured reflection. Do not just replay what happened. Analyze it. What did you notice in the moment? What signals did you miss that only became clear in retrospect? Where did your assumptions prove inaccurate? What would you do differently with the insight you now have? Keep a journal of these reflections. Write down specific observations and the patterns you are beginning to recognize. Note your successes and your failures in reading situations accurately. Over time, this journal becomes a textbook written by you, for you, capturing the lessons your unique experience has taught. The patterns you notice in your specific context, with your particular challenges, working with your individual personality. No book can give you this. You must discover it through systematic attention to your own experience. Practice the discipline of separating observation from interpretation. When you notice someone's behavior, train yourself to describe it in purely behavioral terms before moving to psychological interpretation. They spoke quickly and interrupted often. Not, they were anxious or rude. They maintained eye contact and leaned forward. Not, they were interested or aggressive. This discipline prevents premature conclusion and keeps you open to alternative explanations. Then, from pure description, build multiple interpretations. What are 3 different possible meanings of the behavior you observed? This exercise breaks your habit of latching onto the first explanation that occurs to you. It opens your thinking to nuance and complexity. Maybe that person who keeps checking their phone is not disrespectful, but anxious about a sick family member. Maybe the colleague who seems cold is not unfriendly, but deeply introverted and overwhelmed by social interaction. When you generate multiple possibilities, you remain curious rather than certain, and curiosity is the foundation of genuine understanding. Seek feedback on your perceptions. When appropriate, check your reading against reality. You can do this directly sometimes, asking someone if your sense of their feelings or concerns is accurate. Other times you must infer accuracy from outcomes. Did the negotiation unfold as you anticipated based on your reading of the other party. Did the relationship develop in the direction your perception suggested? These reality checks calibrate your instrument, showing you where your perception is accurate and where your biases distort. Challenge yourself in increasingly complex situations. Start by reading people in low-stakes contexts where you can observe without pressure to act. Watching people in public spaces, noticing dynamics in group conversations where you are not central. As your skill develops, apply it in higher-stakes situations. Business negotiations, difficult personal conversations, leadership decisions. Each level of complexity teaches new lessons and reveals new dimensions of human behavior. But always maintain ethical boundaries. Reading people is a powerful skill, and power without ethics is tyranny. Use your understanding to create value, to build genuine connections, to help others feel seen and appreciated. Never use it purely for manipulation or exploitation. Not because manipulation does not work in the short term. It often does. But because it corrodes your character and ultimately limits your effectiveness. People sense, perhaps unconsciously, when they are being played. When your reading of them serves only your narrow interests, they will eventually recognize it and withdraw their trust. But when your perception serves mutual benefit, when you use your understanding to find solutions that work for everyone, people will seek you out. They will trust you with their truth because they sense that you handle it with care. This ethical foundation is not separate from effectiveness. It is the ground of sustainable effectiveness. The most influential people are those trusted most deeply. And trust comes not just from being understood, but from how that understanding is used. As your skill develops, you will notice something remarkable. You will find that difficult people become less difficult because you understand what they need. Confusing situations become clearer because you can read the underlying currents. Conflicts that once seemed intractable reveal solutions when you perceive what each party truly wants beneath their stated positions. Your world does not actually change. Your perception of it changes. And that perceptual shift changes everything. You will also discover that reading people well requires reading yourself well. Your own biases, your emotional triggers, your unconscious assumptions, these all cloud your perception of others. The angry person often sees anger everywhere. The suspicious person finds betrayal in innocent actions. The arrogant person misses valuable input from those they consider beneath them. So self-awareness becomes essential. You must know your own distortions to account for them when reading others. This is lifelong work. You never finish learning to read people because people are infinitely complex and endlessly surprising. But this is part of the beauty. The pursuit itself enriches your life. It makes every interaction potentially fascinating. It transforms the social world from a blur of confusion into a landscape rich with meaning and pattern. There is a moment that comes to everyone who develops this skill, a moment of sudden clarity where everything clicks into place. You are in a conversation, and you can feel the subtext beneath the text. You sense the hidden tension, recognize the unspoken need, perceive the gap between what is being said and what is being meant, and you realize, I see it. I actually see what is happening here. And in that moment, you gain choice. You can address the real issue rather than the surface problem. You can offer what is actually needed rather than what is requested. You can navigate complexity with grace because you comprehend the forces at play. This is the turning point. This is when perception transforms from concept to capability, from theory to lived experience. And once you cross the threshold, you never go back. You cannot unsee what you now see. The social world reveals itself in dimensions that were always there, but invisible to you before. Think of it this way. Most people move through life in a fog, bumping into obstacles they do not see coming. confused by reactions they do not understand, wondering why things keep going wrong in ways they did not anticipate. You are emerging from that fog. You are developing vision in a world of the blind. And with that vision comes responsibility, opportunity, and power. The responsibility is to use your sight ethically. The opportunity is to create outcomes that seemed impossible when you could not see clearly. The power is to influence, to connect, to lead with a depth that commands respect and inspires loyalty. This is not about becoming perfect. You will still misread people sometimes. You will still make mistakes in judgment. But your errors will decrease in frequency and severity. Your successes will multiply. And over time, you will build a reputation as someone who understands, who gets it, who sees what others miss. That reputation becomes one of your most valuable assets. As we draw toward the close of our time together, I want to leave you with the understanding that this skill, the art of reading people, is fundamentally about one thing: seeing reality clearly. Not the reality you wish for, not the reality you fear, but the reality that actually exists in all its complexity and contradiction. Most of human suffering comes from the collision between our expectations and reality. We expect people to be rational when they are driven by emotion. We expect them to value what we value when they operate from completely different priorities. We expect consistency when they are torn by conflicting impulses. These expectation gaps create disappointment, frustration, and conflict. But when you read people accurately, you close those gaps. You see them as they are. You expect from them only what they can actually give. You work with their real nature rather than fighting against it. And this alignment with reality, this acceptance of what is, creates a profound kind of peace, even in the midst of challenging interactions. You stop taking things personally because you understand that people's behavior is almost always about them, not you. The colleague who snapped at you is dealing with stress you know nothing about. The client who cannot make a decision is paralyzed by fear that has nothing to do with your proposal. The family member who criticizes you is projecting their own insecurities. When you see this clearly, you can respond with wisdom rather than react with hurt. This does not mean accepting mistreatment. Clear vision includes seeing when someone is consistently harmful and making the decision to limit your exposure. But you make that decision from clarity rather than confusion, from strength rather than victimhood. The future you are building with this skill is one where you move through the world with confidence because you understand the forces at play, where you create strong relationship because people feel genuinely seen by you, where you achieve your goals more easily because you can navigate the human landscape that stands between you and those goals, where you lead effectively because you know how to inspire, influence, and guide diverse individuals toward common purpose. This future is not guaranteed. It requires commitment. It requires practice. It requires the courage to see what is uncomfortable and the discipline to act on what you see rather than what you wish were true. But it is absolutely available to you if you choose it. So here is your choice point. You can close this experience and return to your life unchanged, moving through the same fog, bumping into the same obstacles, repeating the same patterns. Or you can decide right now that you will become someone who sees, someone who understands, someone who reads the room, perceives the undercurrents, and acts with the clarity that comes from genuine insight. Start today. Start with the very next person you encounter. Watch them. Really watch them. Notice what you have been missing. See what has been there all along waiting for your attention. And then act on what you see. Test your perception. Refine your understanding. Build the skill one observation at a time, one interaction at a time, one insight at a time. The world needs people who understand people. Organizations need leaders who can perceive what their teams truly need. Families need members who can see beneath the surface to the real feelings and fears driving behavior. Communities need citizens who can bridge divides by understanding multiple perspectives deeply. You can be that person. You have everything you need to begin. The only question is, will you? Will you commit to seeing clearly? Will you develop the art of reading people with the same dedication others bring to their crafts? Will you use this power wisely, ethically, and generously? The choice is yours. The path is clear. The tools are in your hands. What you build with them, who you become through this practice, that is your story to write. Write it consciously. Write it with awareness. Write it with the clear eyes of someone who sees not just the surface of things, but the depths beneath. You are capable of extraordinary perception. You are capable of understanding that transforms relationships and creates opportunities. You are capable of navigating the complex human world with grace, wisdom, and effectiveness. All that remains is to claim that capability and make it real through practice. Go now with eyes open, see truly. Understand deeply, and watch as your world transforms in response to your transformed perception. The art of reading people is not just a skill. It is a way of being in the world, a way of engaging with the infinite complexity and beauty of human nature. Master it, and you master something essential to a life well lived.